Hi everyone, my name is Alan, and I work for COSI. But I'm here with Mark Howisher of H&S Dairy, and we're gonna have lunch with some of his cows and just learn all about how dairy farming works. So if you've got any questions, you can put them in the chat, and Mark will answer them for you. But let's get we got a pretty cool hour ahead of us, so let's get started learning about dairy farms. I'm gonna switch my camera. And let's go.
Okay. My name's Mark Howisher, as Alan said. I've been dairy farming for 49 years. This is a small farm. There are farms that have 10,000 or 20,000 cows on them. Our farm has about 65 or 70 milk cows, which is more than enough for one person. And I thought you might be interested in seeing how our cows are cared for and what they get to eat. And this is what most dairy farmers today feed. It's called a TMR. It can have various ingredients in it. Ours has corn silage, which I'll explain corn silage to you in a little bit. It has a grain concentrate, which is protein, some energy, and all their vitamins and minerals they need. And then alfalfa hay, which is the long stem stuff. And I will show you each separate ingredient and show you how we do this when we're done here with the cows. This cow right here that's looking at us, her name's Demona. She's, I think, about 4 years old. And our jerseys, we have all registered jerseys here, a few Holsteins, but my family and I like the jerseys. This red and white cow is a milking shorthorn. They are one of the few heritage breeds in the dairy industry. There's not very many of them left, and they are the only dairy breed that came from the United States. They were originally from the shorthorn beef, and the pioneers kept the better milking ones and kept breeding them for more milk production, and hence we end up with a milking shorthorn. Same color, a lot of the same makeup as a beef shorthorn, but they are considered a dairy animal. But the jerseys are what we really work with. You can see, I'm guessing there's probably about 20 cows up here eating. Right now, they come and go as they want. They can eat anytime, 24/7. We put new feed in about 5:30 in the morning, and then they have free stalls back here behind them. This is just one of my barns. You can see there's a few cows laying in them. Again, they can lay there. They can get up and go drink water, eat feed. And usually I have them locked in today, but usually they could go out in an exercise lot too, except in the severe cold weather or when it's extremely wet. We bed with sand, just like you kids play with in your sandbox. We've come to find out that's a better bedding material for free stalls. It's non-organic, so it keeps a lot of the disease away from the cow's udders that we would normally find if you use a bedded pack. So that's why we do that. As we walk down along here, the water, we kind of have plenty of water here. There's one water right there. And again, they have free choice. We have another water out here at the outside of the lot. And an interesting thing, I was talking to Alan earlier, dairy has made a pledge across the industry that we're going to be carbon net zero by 2050. Now, a lot of industry is making that claim, and the first thing I will tell you, not one industry that makes that claim, including dairy, has 100% of the technology yet to make that all available. But it is a pledge we've all made, and we're going to work hard to get there. One of the interesting things about my waters, this one's probably 15 years old, as you can see how it's faded. And that, I have another one over there. That's another freestall barn. Those cows can come over here too. They're all together. But all of these waters here are what we call energy free. When I started dairying many years ago, you had to have a heater that was usually ran by electric, and to keep this water available to the cows in the winter months in the harsh climates. So what they have done now, they have really insulated these well, and they figured out you could use the heat from the ground underneath, and that keeps the waters from freezing. And they put a shallow amount of water in there, and if everything works right, they still will freeze.
You want to go take a closer look at it?
Yeah, but they'll still freeze. But we check them quite often in the winter, and we can thaw them. But we can regulate the height of this. There's a float in here, and this is where the heat from the ground that's underneath here comes. But we have very, very few problems. Even with this one that's setting outside, we have very little problems with.
That's a great idea.
And these have probably been out for close to 20 years. Like I said, it's something we weren't even talking about net carbon zero at that time. That was the furthest thing from anybody's mind. But with that, this is just one of the improvements dairy has made, and didn't even know we were doing it at the time. We just did that, and it was one of the pluses. Now this group of cows over here are cows that are all pregnant and due to calve within 8 weeks. Some of them sooner, others the full 8 weeks, which means we just took them out of milk production. We had a calf yesterday morning. The cow's already been moved over here, and we've taken the calf. We can walk up here to our calf hutches. This is where we put our baby calves. We take the calves away from their mothers within an hour, maybe 2 hours after they're born. We like to know what they get as far as their first milk, which we call colostrum. And it's all important for that calf to have that as soon as we can get it in the calf, sometimes even before the calf can stand. The calves usually stand 15 to 20 minutes. But
so you take them away pretty soon to make sure they're getting well taken care of.
Yes, they need that colostrum. If we milk the cow, we know what the quality of that colostrum is. This is a newborn calf from yesterday. It is a girl, which we call a heifer. Any uncalved female in the cattle species is called a heifer. And they'll stay here until they're 8, 10, maybe 12 weeks old, each in an individual pen like this. They'll have grain as they get older, water, and they're fed twice a day. And then at the end of that time period, when we decide to wean them, then they're put in groups of 5, usually no bigger than 10. And they just move along in their growth rate. And then they end up over here in this pen, which these are my breeding age heifers. And all these heifers are, I don't know if you can see we can probably go around the other way, but they have a patch on their back right in front of their tail. And that's called a heat indicator. When that is rubbed off and it turns pink, there's pink under that. When cows come in heat, they ride one another. So when that's rubbed off entirely, I know that animal was in heat, and I will artificially inseminate her 12 hours after I find that patch like that. Now, the only cows or females that have that on are my breeding age heifers, which this is a pen, and then my milking cows, the ones that are open. we want to start breeding our cows back after they calve about 45 to 60 days after they're fresh, because a cow needs to have a calf every year to be productive for us. So that's the why we do that. So
why is it so important to you to take such good care of your cows?
Well, for one thing, we only do this because we love our cows. To milk cows, especially milking cows, you have to love doing it. It's pretty much 24/7. We put in, depending upon time of year, 16 to 18 hours a day working with these animals. And it's not always fun work. It's hard work. A lot of baling hay in the summer, a lot of hours in the field to make the feed for them. And of course, again, twice a day, every day, we milk those cows. Whether it's Christmas morning or Thanksgiving evening, we're in the barn. And we love our cows. That's what it's all about.
You can tell from hearing you talk about them.
Now, this is one of the most common breeds that you'll find on farms or out in fields are Holsteins. They're black and white. You can see the size difference here. There's a Jersey standing beside her. You can't even see her until you walk around on this side. But that's the size difference. And if you've noticed, some of these cows are thinner or have less weight, or you see more of the bone structure. Some of them you don't see as much. Well, that depends on their stage of lactation. When they're milking and they first come fresh, they actually produce more milk than they can eat feed to produce that milk. So they are in a negative energy balance, and they really pull their weight down. And that's why it's so critical for us to have this feed right. They eat better than I do. We analyze this feed every time we change hay or we think our corn silage has changed. We have it analyzed for the moisture in it, the protein in it, the energy in it, a lot of what we call micronutrients, which are vitamins that you would take in a vitamin, and our macronutrients, which is calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. We want to balance that for these cows so that they do remain in good health, and they just maintain everything, because if we don't do that right, they become unhealthy. Maybe not to the point that they're sick, but maybe to the point that they won't become pregnant again for us as soon as we need them to be productive. And maybe they will get sick because it pulls their immunity down, and they just, any little disease that comes along, they can get sick. Now here's a good example of a cow. She's about 60 to 90 days fresh, and you can see her backbone right across the top. You can see how sharp, we call that angularity or sharpness. And the cow next to her goes dry here in about 6 weeks. And as you can see, you don't see her backbone quite as well. But that's because she's not producing as much, but she's still eating pretty good. But we don't want them too fat when they calve, or they will get metabolic problems and have problems progressing with their life. And so then we have to doctor them and treat them. And we like taking good care of our cows, but part of the good care is the nutrition part of it. I would rather feed a cow right than treat her out of a problem because I haven't fed her right. That's my philosophy.
We got a question from a guest. They just want to know if the cats and the cows all get along with each other.
Oh,
if they're friends.
Yeah. We have that one kitten. That one kitten you saw.
That one.
Well, I was thinking there was one in the hutch with the baby calf. That kitten, for some reason, its mother raised only it. I was the only one in the litter, and that cat has stayed in a hutch ever since. Now, he'll come out at night and in the morning to get fed milk, but most dairy farms, you're going to find cats. It's just, we like them. They kind of keep the bird population down, and of course they keep mice and rats down. So it's a healthy mix to have them.
I think they're pretty popular.
Yeah,
with the people watching.
That's the cat that was in the hutch. His name's Smokey.
Hi, Smokey. Stealing the show.
Yeah. So I'll take you back here to our mixing things we use to mix and our ingredients in our feed, and I'll explain to you how we mix the feed, and you'll see the machinery it takes to do this. The big white bag or the big white thing you see back here is our pile of corn silage. Last year we decided to quit filling our upright silos, and I can take
yeah, let's go back there real fast.
Here. So what we do when you go to fill a silo, an upright one, you have a pipe that goes up to the top, and you have a piece of machinery called a blower, and you dump the silage in it, and it blows it up there at I can't tell you how fast, but a tremendous amount of feed. We can put a 10-ton wagon load in less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
Takes about a 200-horse tractor to do that, and the equipment that they've developed now really can unload. I couldn't do that when I was a young person. It was a lot slower, but we bring the silage in wagons. I think there's a wagon on the other side of this pile. There was last night anyway. And I can kind of show you what we call these forage wagons. Yeah, there it is. Right out there. It has a chain in the bottom of the floor, and it moves forward, and then those beaters you see there kind of feed it down, and it has another conveyor chain that comes across, and that's how it is unloaded.
Okay.
And what we do, we bring a wagon in coming this way and start unloading from the far end and drive along, and then we have a wagon come in this way and do the same thing. And then as we're doing this, we form this pile, but we have to pack it. So we drive tractors from one side to the other. And let me tell you, you talk about a boring job, very boring job, because the minute you get to the other side, you just back up and go back. And you move one tire width, which is about this wide each time. And you can only pack, if you want to do maximum packing, you can only pack about 3 inches at a time and really get the packing density that you want, because what you want with the silage is you want to get the air out. That's why it's covered, and keep all oxygen away from it while it's going through its ensiling process, which is really fermentation. And then it becomes good feed. And we have very little waste that we throw away. This is what we would call the face of our corn silage, but there's our corn silage right there. You can see, I don't know if you can see, on our chopper, so it grinds up. Well, there's a kernel, what's left of a kernel of corn, but it breaks those kernels open, the traditional kernels, and makes more of the starch in those kernels available to the cows. And if you smell it, it smells real nice. Cows really enjoy that.
It does smell good.
And that is a whole plant. You know, corn gets 8, 10, 12 foot tall. We go along with a machine we call a chopper, cut that corn probably the stalk up this high, probably a foot to 18 inches, but the rest of it goes through that chopper, and it's chopped up into small pieces like that.
I gotcha.
That's how the cows can utilize it. Now, you know, one of the things about cows, well, all livestock, a lot of the livestock eat things that we couldn't eat and turn it into things that we can eat. You take that whole stalk of corn now, you can eat the corn. You can make cornmeal out of it. You can make corn flakes, corn syrup, but that whole stalk you couldn't eat. It's got too much lignin, which is the hard fibrous material in vegetable plants, the green part of the plant. So when we chop that up and make like that, that cow can eat every bit of that and turn it into milk, or in the purpose of a meat animal, can turn it into beef, your meat, your hamburgers and that you eat at the store.
So what's different about cows? Why can they eat that stuff and we can't?
Well, they have 4 stomachs.
Oh, okay.
And they will. And I think, now I'm not saying I've ever read this, but my belief is that the predecessor of the cow in the dinosaur times, they can eat a lot of feed at one time. Like my cows, they have access to feed all the time. But really what you want a cow to do is eat all she wants to eat all in an amount of time, and then you want her to go lay down. When she lays down is when she's making milk. While she's laying down, she brings that food she's eaten back up in balls about the size of a softball. And that's her cud. And that's why you'll see cows laying down and they're really not, they're not eating anything, but they're chewing. Well, they're chewing their cud. When they get done chewing that cud, then that goes down in their second stomach and it goes on through the other 2 stomachs, and it's all processed and it pretty much like we eat. But cow, that's why cows could do that. But my point to the dinosaurs, these animals probably could eat a whole lot, then go hide in a cave or go hide somewhere from a meat-eating dinosaur, and that's how they survived. And that's what makes the most sense to me, because there are animals that eat green plants. A horse has 1 stomach, but sheep and cows, deer, they all have 4 stomachs, and they are what we call ruminants. Pigs, on the other hand, they can eat silage, but they have 1 stomach. But they're just geared differently than humans. This is a salad, somewhat similar to a salad, but we couldn't eat a steady diet of this. We just couldn't. Wouldn't be good for us. We're meant to eat some meat too, and that's just the way it is. Cattle aren't. Cattle are meant to eat all vegetables, all salad type products, and so we'll take you now and show you what this corn silage is made from, in case you don't understand what a stalk of corn is. These right here, those are soybean round bales that we'll bed with. That's what's left after they combine the soybeans. These are corn stalk bales that corn was taken off for grain. The corn stalks left in the field. We go in and mow them with a mower, rake them up, and we round bale them and we bed with them. You can see our heifers. These are all my bred heifers. I have 24 bred heifers that'll calve next summer. So that's my next crop of animals to come into milk. we call it a scratch factor. And it needs to be something like hay that is longer stemmed. The corn silage will do a little, but as you noticed in my hand, that was pretty small. But here in the TMR, you saw the longer stems. That's hay, and that gives that a scratch factor. Corn cobs will do the same thing, but they have to be ground up. You can't feed a cow a whole corn cob. If you do, she might choke on it. So you know, but there's certain things we feed to get a certain makeup, and the better job you're doing with the scratch factor in it makes the fat content in your milk higher, and it helps the protein value in the milk, and the protein is where the cheese comes from. So my milk goes to a cheese plant made into cheese, so the protein values need to be higher. I get more money for that, and of course milking Jerseys, they're the highest protein and the highest fat breed, so that's why one of the reasons we go to a cheese plant. And our milk's perfectly fine to drink as fluid milk, liquid milk, whatever you want to call it, but it goes to cheese, and the cheese yield's higher than if you used a Holstein or something.
Does it go towards any one or few specific kinds of cheese, or just they turn it into whatever they?
I don't know whether people are aware of this or if you are, Alan, but Ohio is the largest Swiss cheese producer in the United States.
I did not know that.
Yes. And there's a good many. My milk goes to Pearl Valley Cheese. They're located in Fresno, Ohio, which is close to Coshocton. And they started as just a Swiss cheese manufacturer. Now they make several different kinds of cheese. You will find it locally. It's usually here. It's under Walnut Creek Farms. They do a lot of packaging for Walnut Creek Farms. Their own private labels found in some stores around. I won't name them because that's kind of advertising. But if you look up Pearl Valley on the website, you'll find, and they do have a retail store where they make their cheese, and it's a nice place to visit. In fact, that's how I ended up starting to haul my milk to them. I got to tour their plant several years ago because I was fortunate enough to be on a board of directors that we got to tour the plant, and my milk had went to Ryder Dairy in Springfield, and there were some issues not on my end but on Ryder's end, and we ended up switching to Pearl Valley, which really pays us better, and we take great pride in saying where our milk goes. When it went to Ryder, we wanted everybody to drink Ryder or Dean's milk because that was our milk was in it. But I would like people to go buy Pearl Valley cheese. But so this is our feed cart, and like I told you, it not only mixes and cuts up that feed, but we have scales on it too. We enter in now we feed the group of cows as a whole. The individual our ration is made for one cow, but that transforms into, let's just say we're milking 60 cows today. Well, we carry a feed sheet in our tractor, and my oldest grandson does my feeding for me most of the time. You look over to the column, find 60, and then you start down. First ingredient we put in is hay. And right now they get 8 pounds of hay, which is this product right here. So that means he's got to dump 480 pounds in this cart. So he gets done doing that, then he has to put silage on. And the purpose for putting the silage on, Alan will show you here in a few minutes. There's an auger with knives in there. You put the hay in first, you put the silage on next. The weight of the silage keeps the hay down here some and helps cut it, because as you can tell, this hay is very, very long. And so what happens if we would just dump that out in there, some cows are going to love to eat just straight hay. Some cows will love to eat straight corn silage. So what happens is they sort, and we don't want them to sort. The concept is, as you go through that TMR, every mouthful should be the same as far as any protein amount, any energy amount. That every time they take a mouthful, we want that to be the same composition as the mouthful they took 10 minutes ago, or the mouthful they took yesterday. Even though it's a different batch of feed, it's still there. Then the last thing we put on is our grain. This has your bean meal. It has corn, very finely ground corn. I think the last time I talked to my feed consultant, or my nutritionist is really what we call him, he's putting in some bakery products, which bring energy because there's sugar. It's what's left after they bake cookies and that. And we can buy that at a cheaper price. Everything he does, he tries to keep my feed costs. That's my biggest cost on this farm, is my feed cost. So the cheaper we can make up this grain and still meet what the cows' requirements are, and most importantly, get them to like to eat it, because I can make up some horrendously cheap feeds that will meet all their requirements and everything, and they won't even begin to eat it. So, number one, they've got to eat it, or it's not going to do them any good. Number two, we want to keep the cost as low as possible, because this is the only way I make money. I don't have another job. This is my sole income source. What goes out of my bulk tank in my milk house is the only thing I make money off of. But I have to pay all these other things. This feed cart, now it's used now, but when I bought it new, it was a $25,000 feed cart. Now, the same feed cart, same size, everything it does, will be $35,000. My tractor is about a 1975, 76 model. Very good mechanically, very good tractor, 150 horse tractor. To replace that tractor today would be upwards of $200,000 to $250,000. So and that's just two implements to feed my cow. That don't count everything else. My skid loader here, we do numerous things with it. We have numerous attachments. We scrape manure. We load manure. We feed with it. We push up feed all day long here, probably about once an hour. I take a big blade and push that feed up so the cows don't have to reach so far through to get to it. And now, when you say we feed with this is our feeding bucket. No manure has ever been in this bucket since it's been brand new. We have a separate bucket to do that. We move all our hay, like this slice of hay here is from a big square bale that measures 3 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot long. So we use our skid loader again to load and unload, those round bales. This is probably one machine that gets used the most. To replace this machine is $35,000, and it'll lift a ton at a time. But that's 2,000 pounds. But still, there's a lot of working parts in there, a lot of things that we have to maintain and keep. So when you take all these expenses out, then you still have to have some money left to eat on.
Pay the bills.
And keep your roof over your head. That piece of machinery over there is a manure spreader, in case anybody's seen it and wondering. It one of a newer kind. It has vertical beaters instead of horizontal, so it throws a wider pattern, and it's another one of those tools that's going to help dairy get to net zero carbon, because it does a better job of spreading manure, probably a faster job, and we can take our manure and use it for fertilizer. And we are getting to the point now that some grain farmers that are totally grain farmers are interested in our manure. So at some point, may not be in my time, but in my grandson's time, our manure is also going to bring us in some dollars, because we're going to be able to sell our manure our excess manure.
That's great. So Mark, we've only got about 9 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to show us how like the milking parlor works or anything else?
Sure.
That's one of the most important parts.
Yeah. That's where the money comes from. And we spend most of our, I won't say most of our day, but there's probably 6 hours a day minimum spent in there. And that's just working with the cows. Now we are state inspected and regulated. We have to have a grade A milk license. And with that, there's certain criteria we have to follow. All of our equipment has to be stainless steel. We are routinely spot checked on the cleanliness of our material or our equipment. If our milking equipment's not clean, not up to par, we get put on what we call work orders, and that means the milk inspector's going to come back and maybe keep coming back until we get it right. And at a certain point, if we don't have it right, we will be shut off, which means we have no market for our milk, and that would be devastating. And we're all held to the same criteria. There's several different ways of milking, but this is my parlor. This is an old parlor, it's older than I am. I'll turn the lights on here. We have a lot of modern things in it, but the walls and the floor are older than I am. We have glazed block tile, which makes it easier to clean. As you can see, it's clean.
It is very clean.
We have manure. Cows do manure in here. They will spot it up. We clean this up every morning as far as the walls and ceiling and everything. These are our milker units. When they are down, these are what we call CIPs right here. We take them off, and then this is the actual milker that you put on the cow's teat. Goes in here like this. We have a pulsator that shuts the vacuum off and then opens it up and lets vacuum on, and that's how we get the milking. It's not like hand milking where you actually squeeze. It's vacuum, and if you have a constant vacuum, it doesn't allow blood supply to the teat end, so that's why we have a pulsator, which
it's all about taking care of them.
Yeah, and the pulsators are either red and white or blue and white that I have, and there's one for each milker and a master control in my milk house. And this is one of the things Alan thinks is pretty cool.
I do.
We use it every day. It's called a Gestation Tabulator, or I call it a breeding wheel. And we've got a wheel behind it that we can change the date. And as you can see, today's date's right here. Well, last night, on the 15th, and it happened to be last night, I bred a cow, number 17. Now, yesterday morning, when my wife found her in heat, she turned her pen, brought it to the day. She was up in here somewhere, brought it to the day and turned it black. So if I wouldn't have talked to my wife, the minute I walked in here, I would have known that cow needed bred. So after I bred her last night, I turned the pen to yellow, which means she's bred. Now it'll track down here as it goes through the months or weeks or days. And when it gets below this point, well, really this point, 28 days, I draw blood on my cows and can have them pregnancy checked. We no longer use a veterinarian to palpate the cows because of the expense and its inaccuracy. The blood tests are way more accurate than human. And then when a cow calves, as I told you, we had a cow calve yesterday, her pen gets turned red, like this cow next to her is due here. They all, these are all the cows that I showed you that were over here that were dry cows. Now, not down here, but from here on up, they're all dry cows. When that cow calves, you got to make sure your date is the day, today's date. Then you put it in here. Then you track it as it moves around. It will remain red, but you track it. I like to start rebreeding my cows again at 42, which is 6 weeks, to 45, which is 6.5 weeks. These are cows that we've bred, we've pregnancy checked, they're open, and I'm trying to rebreed. That's why there's so many pins right here in this one area. Then once they're checked pregnant, all these green pins are pregnant cows, and then they just kind of come around. And then when they get up here, the next most important date is 2 months to freshening. We usually dry them off between 8 and 6 weeks before they're going to calve. And with that, then it gives them a rest period. And they're just taken care of there. They have a different ration, a different feed. It's still hay and corn size, not near the grain, but it gets their whole system ready to produce milk again, gives their udders time to just regenerate and everything, and then they'll come fresh. The whole process starts again. This wheel was invented before computer, and I learned to use one before computers were very popular. Now, granted, I carry a computer in my pocket on my cell phone. I have all this information that I have on this wheel on the cell phone, but I'm a visual person, and I like coming in here and changing the date and moving the cow, and knowing where they're at. And I can come in here real quick. Granted, I can pull my phone out, punch it up, but while I'm milking, I can turn around and say, oh, that cow's got a day before she's due. Now, that doesn't mean she's going to calve that day, but it tells me I check that barn several times a day when I'm here. And the first place I go is to that barn to make sure I have calves or don't have calves. So, I know right now I got one cow that's gonna
sooner than later.
Yeah. And I've also got a cow for some reason whose pen is clear back here, and I guarantee she's going to be fresh within the next week. I can tell by looking at her. So I've got to go back and check on her breeding date and see if I have a prior breeding date that would put her up here closer to the calving date. And every time I breed a cow, I write the cow's number down and then the sire or the father's bull code, what we call bull code. First two numbers are the stud where the AI company came from. The next two are the breed, which JE, predominantly on my calendar for Jersey. And then the last 4 or 5 digits are the actual bulls that identifies that bull. And all I have to do when I register my calves is put that bull code in, and it automatically will come up who the father is.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for showing us your farm. We can tell you love your cows, and it's great. Personally, I love talking to you about it, but I know our guests do too. And so thank you, everyone that joined us today digitally. I'm sure Mark will be back next year at COSI, hopefully in person.
Yeah.
And you can talk to him yourself and learn about his farm and see his calf and cow.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for touring with us, seeing the farm, paying attention to all the cats. And everyone, we got 30 seconds left.
Oh,
Mark, what's your favorite thing about being a dairy cow farmer in your 49 years? You got 20 seconds.
The freedom.
Freedom.
The one thing, everybody's fought the virus and had to put up with things, but here on the farm, we don't have to wear masks. We don't have to do anything like that. And we're by ourselves. So, if our life hasn't really changed that much. It does when we go to town, but not here on the farm.
I gotcha. Thank you again for showing us around. I'm sure everyone learned a lot. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.